So, welcome to Supercar Driver TV. We're here at Silverstone in late August, so of course it's absolutely pouring down. We've brought 3 GT3RSs with us, which are parked up behind us. We've brought these down from Liverpool, and what we're intending to do today is to take them all out on circuit, do a few laps in each of them if it dries up. Not so bad now, but it was terrible earlier on, and see if we can establish how they progressed over the 3 generations, what the differences are, and if anyone is better than the other. So we've got these 3 cars here, three GT3RSs, but what exactly is a GT3RS? Let's go and have a look at them. So the first one here, this white one, this is a 996 GT3RS. This was the first ones they made. And when Porsche stopped making the air-cooled cars and went to water-cooled cars, they had the Metzger engine. The Metzger engine that goes in the GT3s isn't the same engine that goes in all the other Carreras. This was a race-built engine designed to go racing at Le Mans. It only gets put in the GT3s and the GT3RSs. So that's what differentiates a GT3 or an RS from a plain Carrera to Carrera 4S, etc. In the 996, we started off with the engine rated at about 385 horsepower. The horsepower built up as we went along to about 415 for the Gen 1 3.6 car, about 450 for the Generation 2 3.8 car. When you buy a Ferrari, there's Lamborghinis and Ferraris parked behind me, by the way. You open the engine cover, you get beautiful crackle finish cam covers, everything's polished, everything's carbon fibre. Let me show you one of these engines. So we pop the engine cover, which is of course at the wrong end. Just wait till you see this baby. Check it out. Nothing, absolutely nothing. This is the German way of doing things. Nothing to look at there, no point seeing it. No point having a clear engine cover. No point having crackle finish cam covers. But what we do have is an absolutely fantastic 3.6 litre race built engine. It's all down here, it's all down low, that's why you can't see anything. On the top we've only got the airbox and the ancillaries. All the pistons, the crank, the con rods, all the exciting bits, they're all tucked underneath, really, really low. Gives it a really low centre of gravity. It's just a bit boring to look at. Okay, the black car behind me, this is a 997 GT3RS. The white car we've just been looking at, that was a 996 GT3RS. The 996 body shape was generally unloved. People thought it was a bit ugly and a bit plain. We've got these headlights that nobody liked. People liked the traditional round headlight on a Porsche, which we've then got back to on the 997. Also, even though the 996 GT3RS is based upon the wider body shell of the Carrera 4s, it hasn't got any hips. If you look down the side of the car, it's like a bar of soap. There's no tension to the body shape. That's one of the reasons people never liked the 996 as a whole. But if you look down the side of the 997 car, they've gone back to giving us the flared arches at the back as well as the round headlights at the front. Most people consider the 997 to be a really pretty shape of car. I certainly do. I think it looks 100% better than the 996. Can you see what I mean down the side there, the way those arches flare out at the back? On the 997 GT3RS, they used the wider body shell off of the Carrera 4S. That gives it a little bit more grip at the rear. Come and have a look at some other features on this car. I messed around quite a lot with the aero package on this car, just trying to get us a little bit more downforce on the circuits. You can notice at the back straight away, we've got that great big high wing. That actually comes off a Porsche Super Cup car. And the front splitter down here, that's also off a Porsche Super Cup car. And these winglets on the side, these are off an RSR, which is Porsche's top race car. It's interesting to note that with Porsche, no matter whether you're on a road car or one of their top race cars, a lot of the parts are actually interchangeable because they're all designed to fit on the same body shell. We actually put, first of all, wing flicks on here off a 4 litre car, off a 4 litre RS, but it wasn't giving us enough downforce at the front to match the downforce that we're getting off the Super Cup wing at the rear. We also put a bit more rake in the car to try and help front end grip. We're still lacking a little bit of front end grip compared to what we've got at the back. We've got that rear wing on its shallowest setting. It would be nice to be able to crank it up a little bit, but we're finding it difficult to balance it at the front. When Porsche moved on to the 3.8 litre car, they accepted the fact that they're struggling with front end grip because they keep going wider and wider with the tyres at the rear. and they actually put a wider front tyre on the 3.8 car. That has a 245 section at the front. The other cars have a 235. And to cover the 245 section front tyres, Porsche put these wheel arch extensions. Come and have a look at these. They had to put these wheel arch extensions on to cover the fatter tyre, and they put the fatter tyre on to try to get the car to turn in better. On my Gen 1 car, just on the left here, have a peep. We tried to give this car more front end grip by putting spaces behind the wheels to push the wheels out to give us a wider track. So we've then put the wheel arch extensions and the indicators that come straight off the 4 litre car. Again, this is how they'll interchange between models and generations on Porsche cars. Interesting bit, that. At Silverstone today, it's been pouring down all night, raining all morning. It's slackened off a little bit now, just as lunchtime's here. Isn't that always the way? So tyres are going to be a very important aspect of today and how we get on with these 3 cars. On the 996 GT3RS here, we're on Toyo 888s, which look to me like they've already seen a track day or two. So I'm not expecting a great deal of grip from there. The car's running quite a lot of camber front and rear, so I'm not expecting it to brake very well, or to turn in very well, or to pick up the throttle very well, to be honest. So we'll see how we get on with that car later on. You'll notice the yellow brake calipers behind the wheels on that car. The yellow brake calipers on Porsches come when you order the Porsche ceramic composite brakes. Those discs have been taken off by a previous owner of this car, and we've now got the stainless steel brakes on, or whatever they're made of, iron brakes, but they're not the composite ceramics anyway. On the black car, the 997.1, we've got Michelin Pilot Super Sports, which is a half and half tyre really. They can be used on the road. They're going to be the best tyre of the 3 cars here today, I would have thought, in the conditions we've got. I don't know how they're going to cope with some of the standing water on the Hanger Straight, but we'll certainly give them a go. Again, that car's running quite a lot of camber front and rear, so we'll keep the suspension in its soft mode, hoping that the car will roll a little bit and we can get some of the weight transferred around on braking, acceleration, corner entry, etc., and see if we can't get those tyres to generate some grip. The white 3.8 Generation 2 car is on Michelin Pilot Sport Cups, which again, they're not ideal for today. Again, they also look like they've done a couple of track days before they've got here. We've got standing water all around the circuit. I'm expecting this car to be a bit of a handful, to tell the truth. They've gone up on the tyre widths as well on this car. This has got 245s at the front, 325s at the rear. Now that's a proper fat tyre to try and get across the standing water. I'm expecting this car to be aquaplaning on the straights, snatching with wheel spin when I try to pick up the throttle, even in a straight line. Anyway, we'll see how we get on. Let me show you inside these cars. So we're inside the white 996 car now. This is the car, remember, that was deemed to be a little bit plain, a little bit ugly on the outside. Much the same inside. Check out the dashboard architecture on this. I mean, these cars were designed in, what, 99 or something like that. And the dashboard's not great. Quality of fit and finish isn't great. The materials are cheap. It's a damn sight better than the 993 that went before it. But nonetheless, you're not going to sit in here and think you're in some really expensive fancy motor car. We get a nice Alcantara trim steering wheel, same with the gear lever and the handbrake. The points of contact feel nice, the rest of the interior feels cheap. The seats are fantastic. We have a Club Sport package in this car, so you get your harnesses, your half roll cage, and these lovely seats that really grip you tight in the corners. These cars are available in white trimmed in blue, like this one, or in white trimmed in red. What bugs me a little bit about Porsches, if you order the Club Sport package for a blue car, they give you red harnesses. Why couldn't they give us blue harnesses? Doesn't match. I'm a Virgo, that's no good. On the whole in here, I think the 996 suits the character of the car. The car's a bit more raw to drive than the newer cars. It's a bit of a handful. But when you're on it, when you're really pressing on in this car, you're not looking at what the dashboard is anyway. Let's go and have a look at one of the newer cars. I'm now in the black 997.1, the first generation GT3RS on the 997. This is the 3.6 litre car. Porsche have updated the dashboard considerably from the 996. We've still got very, very cheap plastics, but the layout's much better. Looks a little bit more modern. We've got one-piece dash top now instead of all the extra little binnacles on top of the 996. We've still got the Alcantara on the contact points, feels lovely. Slightly different set of seats, but again, they're absolutely fantastic. We've got that half cage in the back with this Club Sport car and the harnesses. You'll notice they colour code the half cage to the car. This is a black and orange car, and again give us red seat belts. Annoys me that, I wanted orange. What we've got in this car that we didn't have in the earlier car are these buttons here. We're now getting more modern, remember, this car's 2007. The 996, that there's a 2004 car. Now in those 3 intervening years, they've decided that you've got to have a button to make your dampers go soft or hard. They've decided you've got to have a button to make your exhaust go loud or not loud. And you've got to have a button to turn the traction control off. Now for me, I'm buying a GT3RS. Shouldn't be any of those, it should already be loud. I want it to do wheel spins, and I want it to be stiff. The 996, I think, got it right, had no options, it came as it was. This one, we've got these options. These should be on the Carrera 2s and the Carrera 4s, not the GT3RS. Let's go and see the newer one. This is the newest of the 3 cars we've got here today. This is a 2010 3.8 litre 997.2 GT3RS. Now this has got differences again, interior, as opposed to the 2007 car we just had a look at. Suddenly we've got a really, really nice dashboard. Look at this, we've got a full colour touchscreen, sat-nav, infotainment system. In the cubby hole here, I've got iPod connectivity, USB connectors. We still get the lovely Alcantara contact points, lashings of carbon fibre, all lovely stuff. Carbon fibre on the trim panels here. We've got even more buttons in here. These are the bits that annoy me about these cars. Again, we've got the dampers going soft and hard, we've got your exhaust going noisy or loud or quieter. This sport button also sharpens the throttle response. Then we've got, they've separated the stability control from the traction control. On the black car, one button does 2. On this car, you can turn the stability control off, which basically will let the car move around on the way into corners. And then separately, you can turn the traction control off, which means you can let the car move around on the way out of corners. My thoughts on these are the same as they were with the black car next door. Shouldn't be any of that. Shouldn't be. This is the GT3RS, this is the hardcore car. Put all these on the Carrera 2s by all means, but not on this one. Tell you what else annoys me about this car. They've got these door pulls here. Cloth door pulls. They've done that to save about, what, 1/8 of a kilogram on a car that weighs 1400 kilograms? Pointless, that's just a touch, nod to the past that to me is daft. Put a door handle on. Another thing that bugs me about these cars, they've changed the seats for this model, in these 3.8 cars, grip you beautifully, but different to in the other 2 cars, these fold. Look, it's a really clever mechanism. You've got folding seats. In my mind, really, really pointless. What do you want to get behind one of these seats for? There's a roll cage there. I can't put a bag in, I can't put a person in. Why do I want a folding seat? Because now, to make them fold, for some reason, these seats sit you a little bit higher up. I feel you're nearly an inch higher in these seats than you are in the other 2 cars. I'd rather just have the fixed bucket, to be honest, and sit a little bit lower. Anyway, circuit's opening. Let's go and see if we can have a drive. If you know where to look, there's a bit of grip.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so it's 5:10, circuit finished 5 to 10 minutes ago. I've put on my third t-shirt of the day because we've done some sweating. We've done several hours driving 3 cracking cars around a superb circuit this afternoon. It's done nothing but rain all day. And so what have we learned? So I'll tell you a little bit about my thoughts for these 3 cars. These are just my opinion only. I don't want to cause a fight. And to be fair, I've driven all these 3 cars before, both on circuit and on the roads. I'll give you my opinion based on today and my previous knowledge. So first of all, this one, the 3.6 Gen 1 997. We've done more laps in this today than any other car. I've done 2 tanks full of fuel in this car today. Taken lots of people round in it. We've probably used this the most because it's got the most suitable tyres on. If you remember me earlier, I told you this one's got the Michelin Pilot Super Sports on. Sopping wet track, these are the best of a bad lot really. So we've had this on, we've driven the car a lot with the traction control switched on, which you'd never guess really. It lets you get a fairly good 180 degrees of lock on. And then I've done a tank full with the traction control switched off, which lets you spin a couple of times. But we've had great fun. This car still understeers too much for my liking. I think it needs wider front tyres. It's got the 235 section. I don't think it's anything like enough for the 997 chassis. The problem we have with this is trying to get it turned into the tighter corners. There's a problem I've always had with it. We've never been able to dial it out. I've tried lots of times. In the high speed stuff, what we've been struggling with today is oversteer, but mainly with the water, just picking the tyres up, to be honest. We've been sliding around at 3-figure speeds, which is not always a great laugh, but the conditions have just been horrendous. This car, I think, from when I've driven it on the road as well, of the 3, is the best road car. The suspension is slightly softer on this car than on the 3.8 and than on the 996. On a wet racetrack like today, that lets the weight transfer around a little bit as well, which is giving us a bit more grip, which is helping out. And it's also giving me more feel of when we're getting towards the limit of the available grip, which hasn't been much. So I'm going to give this car, as a track day car, as something that you could drive to tracks, take on the track for the day. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a cracking car. As a road car, as a sports road car, I'd probably give it 8.5 or 9 out of 10. Let's talk about the 996 next. Okay, so now I'll tell you a little bit about the 996. We've had this out today as well. I've done a full tank full of fuel in this, given plenty of passenger laps in it. We've done the second most laps of the day in the 996. The Toyo 888 tyres were just completely unsuitable for the conditions. We've had the least grip in this of all the cars, but this car gives you more feedback than either of the other 2. This car's got the passive suspension. The other 2 have got active suspension. I think that they rob a little bit of the feel that the cars give back to the driver. We've got a nice thin steering wheel, we've got nice thin seats, we've got no electronics in the suspension, we've got no traction control to tit about with. And this car just gives the driver everything he needs. Everything's full of feel. I've got feel through the steering wheel, I've got feel through the brake pedal, got the best brake pedal of the 3. I've got feel through the throttle, feel through the seat of my pants. Superb car. We haven't been allowed to do any lap timing today. Track day, you can't put your stopwatches on. It might not have been the fastest of the 3, but of the 3 cars here today, I've probably had more fun in that than I have in the other 2. As a track car for sopping wet conditions on Toyo 888s that are already well worn, I'd give this a 9.5 out of 10. On a dry track, I've driven it around the Grand Prix track here in the dry in the past. On the same settings as we've got now, I'd give it 10. I've never driven anything better around the track that isn't a race car. As a road car, I've driven this one around North Wales and places. I'd give it like 4 or 5 out of 10. It's far too hard for a road car, and the camber settings this one runs means that it's always trying to chase you through the nearest hedge or into a ditch. I've never driven a 996RS on road setting suspension. I'd love to have a go on one, in which case I might give it higher marks for its road ability. Should we move on to the 3.8? So now my opinion of the last car of the 3, which is the 3.8 Gen 2 RS. This is the first car that we took out this morning. We did probably 3/4 of a tank full of juice in this, so plenty of laps in it. Parked it up by about 10:30. And it hasn't been out again since. Now, to me, that speaks wonders. Many people think these are the actual duck's nuts. I'm not one of them, and I'm sorry if I'm going to be offending you there. What I find with this car, the Michelin Pilot Sport Cups, again, they're the wrong tyre for the conditions. The track's been soaking wet today, and they're not the right tyre for it. But then, neither are the Toyo 888s, and this car, the 996, has been an absolute riot. I find the 3.8 on a wet track like today, I don't get as much feel through it as I do either of the other cars. The suspension is quite stiff on this, although we've got the active suspension. It has less movement in it than the 3.6 car. It gives me less feel coming back up through the car. Those big comfortable padded seats might be brilliant when you're driving to Snowdon. Not so good on the racetrack, there's less feel coming through. So overall, on a wet circuit, this car, the 3.8, isn't as much fun to me as either of the other two cars. I've driven it on a dry track, very fast on a dry track, probably quicker than the other two cars, but again, I don't think it's quite so much fun. On the road, I don't think it's as good as the 3.6, the Gen 1, because the suspension doesn't have enough sag on it. When I'm on the typical gnarly British moorland B road, I find that the 3.8 car hops and skips over the jumps, meaning that you're having to lift off. The back wheels aren't always in contact with the floor. On approach to a bumpy corner, the front wheels aren't always in contact with the floor, so you have to lift off, you end up going slower. The Gen 1 car, with its more supple suspension, is a much quicker car cross-country. I've driven that on some really gnarly little roads. You don't have to back off in that. I wouldn't even go down them in the 996, but in the 3.8, I'd be reducing my pace accordingly because I think it's too stiff. I think the 3.8 is a car that doesn't really know what it is. It's not ideal as a track car, and it's not ideal as a road car. Porsche need to make their mind up whether they're going to build a track car, like the 996 RS can be, or a superb road car, which the Gen 1 can be. I think the 3.8 tries to be both, doesn't do either as well as it could do. Having said that, I'd still think it's a much better circuit car or a road car than the likes of your M3s or your Aston Martins or your C63 AMG Mercs. Cracking car, just not quite as good as the other two today. So I hope you've all enjoyed watching your little programme with Supercar Driver TV. I've been Charles Craven, this has been a wet Silverstone, see you next time.